Hey YouTube, it's another video. This is going to be kind of a shorter one, but I'm here to just make a few comments. One, another update. Still haven't really found a lot of offline communities that are consistent. I rejoined another kind of like meetup group to talk about mostly just kind of like data, because that's like the field of work that I'm in. But it's the people there are not really my cup of tea. They're a little bit like hyper obsessed with coding and programming, and I'm not. I just do it because whatever. It pays the bills and they generally like my work. With that said, I still haven't really found really significantly consistent communities offline. I've thought about joining a yoga studio again, but maybe I'll finally pull the trigger on that. Also, I think that would just help me as I have more and more of these lower back injuries and shit. But the main point of this video, I hope to get to the point quickly. I don't know how much longer I want to rant today, but is how I'm just tired of people thinking their favorite YouTubers and Twitch streamers and whatnot are underground. And like you're getting, alternative media. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I actually think the alternative media now is the CNNs and the MSNBCs and the Fox. I see way more people spending so much time on the internet, on YouTube, on Facebook. It's kind of a dead site. On these zombies, but like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, Kick, Rumble, all these websites, they're getting way more viewership than YouTube or whatever. I don't see how people can think otherwise at this point. Again, people are looking at their phones constantly, and they're looking at internet-related content on their phones. Not like maybe they play a few games they've downloaded or something, but I see more people just addicted to the social media. So I disagree with people who say, like, they use... I mean, this guy's not even on CNN anymore, but like people who are like, that guy probably is an NPC who listens to Don Lemon or Andrew Cuomo or whatever. And it's like, well, those guys I wouldn't necessarily recommend listening to, but they're kind of the underground ones now when Joe Rogan's the one with the $100+ million Spotify contract. You're not a hipster. I know. Look, I know both the left and the right YouTube space and streaming space, they kind of cultivate a certain aesthetic to make you feel like you're in this comforted home. So like the right does these like underground fortress man caves, and the left does these like I think the term is bisexual lighting, where they do these like ambient like light greens and light blues and hot pinks. And talk about, whatever it's, and the right wing blames everything on the government, the left wing blames everything on the corporation. And in reality, both of those things can be criticized for a lot of reasons. And the solution is a little bit of both, and the solution is a little bit less of both. But I'm not here to talk about the solutions right now, or at least my reasoning for those solutions, I should say. Because maybe I'm wrong. I'll admit that. But yeah, do people really think that like Joe Rogan is underground? Do people really think that, like Contrapoints on the left or Tim Pool on the right or Andrew Tate are underground? I mean, these people are more... I mean, anybody under the age of like 45, I would say at this point, maybe under the age of 40. So like, millennials and Gen X or Zoomers, millennials and Zoomers are now pretty much all over the age of like, I mean, the youngest of that group would be like maybe the youngest Zoomers are what, 12, 13? So the average Zoomer is maybe like 19, 20. And then the oldest Zoomers are like 25. Does that sound reasonable? So 13 is middle school. That's a little young. Even though I was online, I was playing whatever, like Diablos and World of Warcrafts when that would have been high school, I think, right? I don't remember. No, World of Warcraft was middle school for me. But, we'll say high school and beyond, because I think I do think high schoolers deserve a little bit more credit for some level of maturity, because, they interact with the adult world a fair bit, especially, high schoolers might have a part-time job where they're talking to people about things, or, and they're prepping their future for a college or post-high school life. I get it. But, anybody of the Zoomer gen and millennial generation, which is, well, I think the definition of young people right now are the, millennial and Zoomers. They are, all listening to these podcaster streamer types. They're not the underground. Now, maybe to some, 68-year-old, 74-year-old, boomer, okay, sure, but, that's not an underground mainstream argument. That's just an age argument. I mean, there's plenty of boomers who probably, I bet you there's even some boomers who might even listen to Andrew Tate. Maybe some, like, divorced male who is pissy about life. He might listen to Andrew Tate. Or, maybe some boomer woman. Actually, I will say this. I know there's a meme about Karens and how they always complain, and I guess that's mostly, like, Gen X women or maybe some young boomers. Most boomer women I meet are actually pretty pleasant. They're relatively happy still. Maybe they get a little jealous of the younger generations. I have met some older women in my workplace who are a little bit jealous of the younger women because they think that the younger women haven't had to work as hard to break gender barriers, and maybe they're correct on that, honestly. But for the most part, I actually think the Karen meme is a little bit selectively, like, over the top enforced. I don't really see it as often as people think, unless, I guess maybe the modern Karen is like a 40-something, which would be a Gen Xer or a really, really old millennial. But yeah, old, like, boomer women, they actually seem to be kind of carefree and, generally speaking, pleasant. But that's just my anecdotes where I live. But yeah, do people really think that, like, these podcasters and streamers are underground? And I guess what they mean by alternative media, maybe the rebuttal would be, well, they're not influenced by corporations or something like that, where, somebody who gets paid by CNN or MSNBC or Fox are more likely to have to, like, stay within an Overton window and not upset people or whatever. And maybe that's true, but, all of these platforms that people stream on, they're funded by big tech controls all of them. I guarantee you, like somebody who streams on Twitch probably can't shit on Amazon too much, maybe a little bit. But Amazon owns Twitch, and Amazon is not underground. They are everywhere. Joe Rogan has an $100 million contract from Spotify or whatever the fuck it is. Spotify is probably the premier audio streaming service. Maybe not video, obviously not video, and definitely not, and maybe not the premier streaming service, period. That's probably still Netflix, but I don't know. Maybe it's YouTube TV for that matter. Actually, it might be. But yeah, these people, I don't know. I think alternative media is starting to not really be alternative, or maybe, or not starting to. I think it's kind of firmly entrenched as not. We now have a world where, some of these prominent streamers, whether they're, I was just recently watching a little bit of this debate between, I guess you would say, like, semi-progressive Destiny versus the Andrew Tates and the Nick Fuentes, nationalists and all these other crazy people. And I definitely think Destiny is the more smarter of those guys, but the thing is like, I was watching this debate and I'm just like, well, hasn't Nick Fuentes hasn't he like literally been in, like hung out with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago or whatever? Which is, the former president of the United States, and has I would argue, a good chance of winning in 2024, this year. I forgot it is 2024, this year. If these guys are alternative media, why would they? Oh, and by the way, on the same debate, like George Santos is like showing up and stuff. Like that guy was like a government. Like, I mean, that guy is a mess of a human being in a lot of ways. But these are public officials. These are very prominent people who have direct links. Donald Trump has a direct link to the mainstream media, and he has a direct link to Nick Fuentes. How are these people that underground? Why do people still think this? Andrew Tate is, that guy's a little bit different because he's been on the run, and I don't think he has lived in America for like 7 years or some shit. But he has direct links to these people. I know Andrew Tate was like a big buddy with that Aiden Ross guy. Aiden Ross hangs out with Dana White, the UFC president, who probably has, who talks to officials of the government to, get his UFC brand allowed to be, before it was not allowed in New York, for example, because New York didn't allow combat sports. And so, he had to work with the New York government to allow the UFC to have events in Madison Square Garden or whatnot. And this is the same guy who's hanging out with Aiden Ross. Now, Aiden Ross is just a streamer. I don't think anybody calls him alternative media, because he's not really a journalist, or he's not really a political person. Although he might be, I don't know. But, the point is that these YouTubers and Twitch streamers are not underground. You have people like Piers Morgan, who I think is on CNN. He's interviewing, Hasan Piker, or that critical drinker guy. You have people like Destiny talking on Fox News to Will Cain, who was on ESPN for a long time. Why do people still think these guys are underground? Now, and it doesn't mean their content is wrong or bad. Not always, at least. But stop thinking they are, like, speaking this truth that the mainstream media isn't. Everybody has some level of opinion, maybe some level of, I don't know if I'd say lying, but, like, some people who interpret things incorrectly. Maybe they're doing that on their own, like they're purposely doing it, or maybe they're doing it and because they made an accident. But stop viewing them as underground. You have to stop doing this, and you have to go outside and start living your life more. Spend less time on the internet. Anyway, have a good day.